What does it feel like to watch the world's greatest civilization slowly forget how to survive? Not fall in a single night, not burn in one final war, but fade, harvest by harvest, king by king, mistake by mistake. What if I told you the civilization that gave you cities, writing, laws, and the very concept of time didn't end because it was conquered? It ended because it was human. And that's exactly why this story still matters. Long before empires became legends, before philosophers had written a single idea, before Egypt had raised its greatest pyramids, there was a land between two rivers, the Tigris, the Euphrates, and in that narrow stretch of earth, something impossible happened. Humans stopped wandering. They stayed. They built walls, then streets, yet then cities filled with strangers learning how to live together. This was the first time in history that humanity tried to organize itself, not as tribes, but as civilization. They invented writing, not for stories, for survival, to count grain, to track debt, to control a growing, complicated world. They measured time, mapped the stars, wrote laws that even kings had to obey. This was Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, and for over 3,000 years of kings and conquests, of gods and empires, of poetry and war, it worked, until it didn't. And what ended it wasn't one enemy. It was several, stacking one on top of the other over centuries, until the weight became impossible to carry. The height of power. To understand the fall, you have to first stand inside the height. Picture the city of Uruk, the air thick with dust and noise, merchants shouting, children running through narrow streets, scribes pressing symbols into wet clay, recording lives that would outlast them. Above everything, a massive ziggurat rises, layer upon layer of stone, reaching toward the sky like a staircase for the gods. It wasn't just a temple. It was a message to the universe. We are permanent. 50,000 people living within those walls. The largest city on earth. Empires rose from this land like tides. The Akkadians, under Sargon, built something the world had never seen. An empire that didn't just conquer cities, it connected them. Trade, administration, identity. Then Babylon. Under Hammurabi, laws were carved into black stone, not whispered behind closed doors, not changed on a king's whim, but fixed, though visible, absolute. 282 rules governing everything from trade to marriage to murder. Then Assyria, a war machine so efficient, so ruthless, that entire nations collapsed at the sound of its name. Iron weapons, siege towers, psychological terror used as deliberate policy. For centuries, Mesopotamia wasn't just part of the world. It was the world. But something had already begun to shift, quietly, almost invisibly. When the sky stopped giving, climate change. No army marched in. No king declared war. The first enemy came from above, far away in the mountains where the rivers were born. Winters grew weaker. Snow fell, but not enough. And when spring came, the rivers didn't rise the way they used to. At first, no one panicked. A weak flood one year, maybe two. That wasn't a disaster. But then it kept happening. Around 2200 BCE, scientists today recognize what was actually occurring. A catastrophic shift in climate patterns, now called the 4.2 kilo-year event. The monsoon rains that normally swept in from the Indian Ocean moved southward, away from Mesopotamia. The mountain snowpack shrank. The rivers carried less water. The floods became weaker, and somewhere in a field, a farmer noticed something small but terrifying. The soil was changing. Where it used to be dark and rich, it was turning pale. He pressed it in his hands. It felt wrong. He planted anyway, and when harvest came, there was less. The next year, even less. What no one could see was that the land itself was being poisoned. Irrigation kept crops alive, but left salt behind. Invisible, silent, permanent. Year after year, the salt built up. And ancient Sumerian texts actually record this. Scribes writing that where once dark soil grew dark barley, now only white soil remained. Only salt-tolerant plants could survive. Cities that had fed tens of thousands couldn't feed themselves. Families left. Fields emptied. The population of the Akkadian heartland may have dropped by as much as 93% in just a few generations. This wasn't a military defeat. The land itself had given up. Wars without end. When food disappears, peace goes with it. A city that once traded with its neighbor now saw its enemy. Water became power, land became survival, and survival became war. Not one war, not one generation. Centuries of conflict that never truly ended. Sons inherited battlefields from their fathers. The Sumerians fought the Akkadians. The Akkadians fell to the Gutians. Thus, the Babylonians rose and collapsed. The Assyrians dominated for centuries, then disappeared almost overnight. What gets lost when you list these wars like entries in a ledger is the actual cost. Iron for weapons, timber for siege towers, grain to keep armies moving, silver to hold mercenaries' loyalty. Every war consumed resources Mesopotamia could not replace. And after every war, burned cities had to be rebuilt from scratch. Fields that armies had marched through lay ruined for seasons. Irrigation systems that took decades to construct were wrecked in days. The Assyrians understood war better than almost anyone. Their strategy wasn't just conquest, it was terror. When they took a city, they didn't simply demand tribute. They deported entire populations, moving conquered peoples thousands of miles from their homelands to break their identity and destroy any will to resist. It worked, for a while. But you can only stretch an empire so far before it becomes impossible to hold. By 612 BCE, Assyria, the most feared military force the ancient world had produced, was gone. Its capital, Nineveh, destroyed. A civilization built entirely on war had finally run out of enemies to conquer and allies it could trust. Corruption and weak leadership. Empires don't always fall from the outside. Sometimes they decay from within, quietly, almost invisibly, until one day the whole structure just stops working. A strong king builds order, a weak king inherits it, and slowly, that order begins to crack. In Mesopotamia, this pattern repeated with terrible regularity. A powerful ruler would rise, building, conquering, leaving behind functioning laws and working institutions, and then he would die. What came after was rarely as capable. Governors in distant provinces started collecting taxes for themselves instead of sending them to the capital. Priests accumulated land and wealth that rivaled the king's own. The army, underpaid and underappreciated, lost its discipline. Court politics swallowed military strategy, but the most dangerous loss wasn't power, it was trust. Trust is the invisible architecture of any empire. Citizens trust their leaders are capable. Soldiers trust their sacrifices mean something. Merchants trust the roads are safe and the laws are real. When that trust erodes, there's no dramatic announcement. The empire doesn't collapse all at once. It leaks. A road no longer safe. A law no longer enforced. A promise no longer believed. And one day everything still stands, but nothing works. The invaders. Every civilization weakened by drought, war, and corruption eventually attracts the same thing: the attention of those who are still strong. From the mountains. From the north. From beyond the edges of the known world, the Gutians came first. Rough, unpredictable, not interested in ruling, only taking. They descended from the Zagros Mountains around 2154 BCE and dismantled what remained of the Akkadian Empire. They didn't build. They tore apart administrative systems, severed trade routes, and left Mesopotamia fractured for nearly a century. As ancient Sumerian texts describe them with barely restrained horror, calling them the stinging serpent of the mountains, blaming them for unraveling the divine order of civilization. Then the Hittites. From Anatolia, modern Turkey, they carried one advantage most of Mesopotamia hadn't mastered: iron. While Mesopotamian armies still largely fought with bronze, Hittite weapons were harder, sharper, longer lasting. In 1595 BCE, the Hittite king Cyrus I struck deep into Mesopotamia and sacked Babylon. He didn't stay, but the damage was done. And finally, the Persians. Cyrus. When Cyrus the Great approached Babylon in 539 BCE, something strange happened. The gates opened. No great battle, no final stand. After centuries of war, the people didn't resist, because by then, Mesopotamia had already lost the will to fight. Babylon was ruled at the time by Nabonidus, a king who had managed to turn nearly everyone against him. He had abandoned the traditional Babylonian gods, spent years away from his own capital living in the desert city of Timah, and neglected the sacred New Year festival so central to Babylonian religion that his absence felt like a divine betrayal. The priests were against him. The merchants were against him. The people were against him. And then Cyrus arrived. He didn't burn the city. He restored it. Temples reopened. Exiles, including Jewish captives, were allowed to return to their homelands. He declared that people had the right to worship their own gods and live under their own customs. The Cyrus cylinder, a clay barrel inscribed with his own words, is considered by some historians to be the world's first declaration of human rights, carved over 2,500 years ago, in a city that no longer exists. For the first time in a long time, conquest didn't feel like destruction. It felt like relief. And just like that, the world's first civilization stopped being its own master. The silence of the cities. Cities don't scream when they die. They go quiet. Birthplace of civilization, was slowly abandoned as the Euphrates shifted course, leaving it stranded miles from water. Nineveh, capital of the Assyrian Empire, so vast that ancient texts describe it as requiring 3 days to walk across, was destroyed so completely that for centuries, the world simply forgot it had ever existed. Even Babylon, the greatest city of the ancient world, emptied slowly under Persian rule, then Greek rule after Alexander conquered Persia, until its population drifted away and the mud brick walls dissolved back into the earth. The Tigris and Euphrates still flow today, carrying water from the mountains of Turkey down through Iraq to the Persian Gulf. But the cities that once lined their banks, the ziggurats, the temples, the palaces, the markets, are buried under thousands of years of sand and silence. What they left behind, legacy, Mesopotamia didn't fail. It lasted longer than Rome, longer than Greece, longer than any empire that followed it. And before it faded, it built the foundation of the world you live in right now. The first cities, the first written laws, the first words ever recorded, the idea that order could exist between strangers, that a king must answer to a written code of justice, not just to his own desire. The wheel, the plow, the arch, the calendar, mathematics, astronomy. Every city you live in, every law that protects you. Every time you read a number or check a date, that is Mesopotamia. They may be gone, but nothing they built has ever truly disappeared. Here's the part that should stay with you. It wasn't one disaster that ended Mesopotamia. It was many. stacked together over time. A changing climate that destroyed the agricultural foundation everything else depended on. Wars that consumed resources faster than they could be rebuilt. Corruption that hollowed out institutions from the inside. And outsiders who found a civilization that had already defeated itself. Those same forces haven't disappeared. They've just changed shape. History doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it rhymes. And right now, it's rhyming very loudly. The question isn't why Mesopotamia fell. The question is, are we any different?